The night I suggested moving to a bigger place was supposed to bring David and me closer, not tear our marriage apart. We had been married for 6 years, and somewhere between paying bills and chasing work schedules, the spark between us had quietly dimmed. I still loved him, but it often felt like we were two people living parallel lives instead of one. That night, I turned to him while we sat on our worn-out couch and said, "David, don't you think it's time we finally find a bigger home?" He looked up from his phone, gave a tired smile, and said, "We'll see next year, Jules. Let's get through this quarter first." He meant well. He always did. But I felt invisible. It wasn't about money or space. It was about wanting something to look forward to. I wanted excitement again, something new to dream about. That's when I started browsing online listings, scrolling through photos of bright kitchens and open-concept living rooms. One name kept appearing everywhere: Harry Reeve. His clients called him the best realtor in the city. Something about his confident smile in those photos pulled me in. Without overthinking it, I filled out a contact form. Harry called the next morning. His voice was calm, charismatic, the kind that made you feel instantly comfortable. "Julia, I'm thrilled you reached out," he said. "From what you described, I already have a few homes in mind that might be perfect for you and your husband." The way he spoke made it sound like he already understood me, my taste, my vision. I told him I'd bring my husband along to meet him that weekend. David didn't seem too enthusiastic, but he agreed. When we met Harry at the first property, I felt like I was in one of those TV home tours. He was tall, immaculately dressed, confident. He shook David's hand firmly, then turned to me with a smile that lingered a moment too long. "Julia, I can already tell you have an eye for design," he said. I laughed, brushing it off, but something in the way he said it stayed with me. Over the next few weeks, we toured more homes. David started skipping some visits because of work, telling me, "Go ahead with Harry. You know what you like better than I do." That small permission changed everything. Harry and I began spending more time together. We talked about homes, yes, but also about life. He'd ask about my job, my hobbies, what I wanted in the future. He listened, really listened, in a way David hadn't in a long time. I told myself it was harmless. I told myself I just enjoyed the attention, the conversation. But deep down, I knew I was drifting. One evening after a late showing, Harry suggested we grab coffee. It was raining lightly, and the cafe was almost empty. We talked for hours. At one point, I said, "Sometimes I feel like David and I are stuck in a loop. Same routine, same conversations." Harry looked at me with an understanding that felt dangerous. Maybe he just doesn't see you the way he used to. Some men forget the woman standing right beside them. Those words broke through my defenses. I laughed softly, tried to change the subject, but the damage was done. When he walked me to my car, he paused. "Julia, you deserve to be seen," he said quietly. Before I could respond, he leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't long, but it was enough to send my world spinning. I drove home trembling, guilt and adrenaline mixing in my chest. David was asleep on the couch when I got home. The TV flickered in the dark, and I stood there for a long moment just watching him. The man who trusted me completely. The man I had just betrayed. I wanted to wake him up, confess everything, tell him I felt lonely and unseen. But instead, I covered him with a blanket and went upstairs to cry silently in the dark. The next morning, I promised myself it had been a mistake. I even ignored Harry's texts for a few days. But guilt has a strange way of fading when you crave the same feeling again. A week later, I replied to one of his messages. Then another. Soon, our conversations weren't about houses anymore. They were about how I felt trapped, how he made me feel alive, how I hadn't laughed like this in years. I started telling David I had more house showings. Sometimes I'd actually visit properties, sometimes I didn't. Harry and I met in quiet neighborhoods, in luxury homes with no owners, even in his office after hours. Each time, I told myself it would be the last. Each time, I lied. Every night I came home, I overcompensated. I'd cook dinner, sit closer to David on the couch, ask about his day. He seemed relieved by the sudden affection. One evening he smiled and said, You've been glowing lately. I forced a laugh, saying it was because of all the excitement around finding a new home. Inside, my stomach twisted. Harry was addictive in the worst way. He made me feel like the version of myself I'd lost somewhere along the way. Funny, confident, desirable. But every moment with him deepened my guilt. Each kiss, each secret meeting was another thread unraveling the life David and I had built. One night, I came home around 11, shoes in my hand, heart pounding. David was waiting on the couch, half asleep, the TV humming softly. "Long night?" he asked. "Harry wanted to go over paperwork," I said, forcing a casual tone. He just nodded and smiled. That trust, his calm, unquestioning belief in me, hit harder than any accusation ever could. That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how far I'd gone. I wasn't the kind of woman who cheated. I wasn't supposed to be her. And yet I was. I told myself I could stop any time I wanted, that I was still in control. But I wasn't. I didn't know it then, but the cracks were already showing. David had started noticing the small changes, the late nights, the constant texting, the distant smiles. I thought I was hiding it well, but guilt leaves traces even when you think you've wiped them clean. The night everything fell apart was closer than I realized. The night everything fell apart started like any other lie I had told before. Harry had texted me in the afternoon, saying he wanted to see me again. He sent, "Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about it. Can't wait for tonight." I remember smiling when I read it, then quickly deleting the message before David could see it. But for some reason, my hands were shaking. Maybe deep down, I knew my luck was running out. I told David I was going to see another property with Harry, a Kensington listing that might sell fast. He nodded like always, trusting, supportive, almost proud of how involved I seemed in the search. I hated myself in that moment. The guilt had grown into something I carried like a stone in my chest. Every time he looked at me, I felt like he could see right through me. That evening, as I was getting ready, my phone buzzed again. I glanced at it quickly. It was Harry. I didn't open it, but my stomach twisted. I told myself I'd check it in the car. I remember David sitting at the table sorting through bills. He smiled and said, "Be safe, okay?" His voice was calm, loving, routine. I forced a smile, kissed his cheek, and walked out, knowing I didn't deserve that kind of love anymore. When I reached Harry's place, one of the homes he was managing for an open house, the guilt momentarily faded. He opened the door with that same confident smile, and before I could even say anything, he pulled me into his arms. For a few hours, I forgot about everything else. It wasn't right, but at the time, it felt like an escape from the numbness I had been living in. I didn't know David had followed me. Later that night, when I returned home, I could sense something off immediately. The house was too quiet, too still. David was sitting on the couch, not watching TV, not on his phone, just sitting there. His expression was unreadable. I smiled nervously, trying to sound casual. "Hey, you're still up?" "Yeah," he said quietly. "How is the Kensington property?" My heart skipped. The tone in his voice wasn't normal. It was nice, but a bit overpriced. Harry always thinks something. He cut me off. His eyes lifted to meet mine. "You smell like cologne, Julia." His maybe? I froze. My mind went blank. For a second, I thought of lying, but he already knew. You can't fake calm like that unless you've already seen the truth. "I saw you," he said. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "I followed you tonight. I saw you walk into that house. I saw you kiss him." My knees went weak. I tried to speak, but no words came out. I felt my chest tighten, my throat dry up. I finally managed to whisper, "David, please." He stood up slowly. "Don't," he said. "Don't lie anymore." The air between us felt heavy, like something irreparably broken hung there. I wanted to run to him to tell him it wasn't what it looked like, but it was exactly that. There was no way to soften it. I'd done the one thing I promised I never would. He didn't yell. That almost made it worse. He just looked at me like he didn't recognize who I was anymore. "How long?" he asked. I whispered, "A few months." He let out a short, bitter laugh, the sound of disbelief more than anger. "A few months," he repeated, as if testing how it felt to say it out loud. "You used to tell me everything. And all this time, I was cheering you on, thinking you were just excited about houses." Tears burned my eyes. I tried to reach for his hand. He stepped back. "Why him, Julia?" he asked quietly. "Was it the suits? The charm? Or did I just stop being enough?" I broke down completely. I told him everything. How lonely I felt, how I thought we were drifting, how I missed the person he used to be. But as I said it, I realized how selfish it all sounded. David had been there, steady and loyal, while I had been chasing a temporary high. He didn't say another word. He just walked past me and went upstairs. I stood there for what felt like hours, crying silently, the reality crashing down around me. The next morning, he was gone before I woke up. When he came back, he said he'd talked to a lawyer. The calmness in his voice was terrifying. "We're done, Julia," he said. "I'm filing for divorce." I tried to plead, tried to explain, but nothing I said could undo what he had seen. He packed a small bag and stayed somewhere else that night. The silence of the house without him felt unbearable. A week later, he confronted me again, but this time in public. I didn't know he planned to. Harry had organized an open house for a luxury property, one of those events where clients and media come in. He'd asked me to attend to help out and look professional. I agreed, thinking it would help distract me from the chaos at home. I arrived early, dressed in a calm, neutral outfit, trying to look composed even though my life was falling apart. People milled around, admiring the house. I was talking to Harry near the grand foyer when I saw David walk in. My stomach dropped. He looked too calm, too deliberate. "David," I said softly, confused. "What are you doing here?" He smiled tightly. "I came to see what kind of homes Harry sells." Then his expression changed. "Actually, no. I came to show everyone what kind of man he really is." The room fell silent. Harry's confident expression faltered. David raised his voice just enough for people to hear. "This man isn't just selling homes. He's been sleeping with my wife." It felt like every molecule of air vanished from the room. I heard gasps, whispers, phones clicking on to record. Harry tried to intervene, saying, "David, this isn't the place." But David cut him off. "Oh, it's the perfect place," he said. "You like putting on shows, don't you? Let's put this one on for everyone." I could barely breathe. My face burned, tears threatening to spill, but no sound came out. David pulled out his phone. "I have messages, photos, videos. Proof. You both deserve each other." Harry tried to reach for him, but David stepped back, holding his ground. The humiliation was unbearable. My vision blurred. I whispered, "David, please stop." He looked at me, and for a moment I thought I saw pain instead of anger. "You stopped caring about what I felt a long time ago," he said. "Now it's my turn to stop caring about what you think." He turned and walked out, leaving behind a stunned crowd and the shattered remnants of the life I destroyed. People started whispering, phones still recording, eyes darting between me and Harry. I could barely stand. My legs felt weak, my chest hollow. Harry touched my arm and said, "We'll fix this." I pulled away. "No, Harry. You ruined everything." I ruined everything. When I got home that night, David's things were half gone. There was an envelope on the table, divorce papers, and a note. "You broke everything we built. I hope he was worth it." That was the last time I saw him. The videos from that day went viral in our community. Harry's reputation fell apart overnight. His agency fired him within a week. As for me, I lost everything that mattered: my husband, my friends, my dignity. Days blurred into nights. I stopped eating, stopped answering calls. Every time I looked around a house, I saw ghosts of our past, dinners, laughter, plans for a future that would never exist. I wanted to apologize, but he blocked my number. I wrote letters I never sent, emails that stayed in drafts. The guilt was too heavy to bear, but it was mine, and I deserved it. After the confrontation, my world collapsed in slow motion. The days that followed felt unreal, like I was watching someone else's life fall apart while I stood on the sidelines, powerless to stop it. I didn't sleep for nights. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw David's face in that open house, calm, broken, humiliated. The image replayed in my mind like a punishment that never stopped. People started whispering about me. Friends I'd known for years suddenly stopped responding to messages. My coworkers kept their distance, pretending not to know about the viral video, but I could see the pity in their eyes. My family was disappointed beyond words. My mother didn't yell. She just sighed and said, "You threw away a good man, Julia." Those words stung more than any slap could have. Harry tried to call. I ignored him for days. I didn't want to hear his voice. The same voice that once made me feel alive now just reminded me of what I'd lost. When he finally showed up at my door, he looked nothing like the confident man I'd met months ago. His eyes were tired, his tone desperate. "Julia, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." I stood there, gripping the door frame. "You knew I was married, Harry. You knew exactly what this was." He rubbed his face with shaking hands. I don't know what I thought. I just didn't want to lose you." I laughed bitterly. "You didn't just lose me. We both lost everything." He tried to reach for my hand, but I stepped back. "Don't come here again," I said quietly, and closed the door. That was the last time I saw him. Later, I heard his license was revoked, and he was being sued by David. A part of me wanted to feel satisfied, but mostly, I just felt empty. I spent weeks in silence after that. The house felt too big, too quiet. David had officially moved out. His closet was empty, his toothbrush gone. The coffee mug he used every morning still sat in the sink. I couldn't bring myself to wash it. It was like the last piece of him I still had left in the house. I kept thinking about what I'd say if I ever got the chance to speak to him again. Sorry didn't feel big enough. Nothing did. He'd given me everything: love, trust, stability, and I'd thrown it away for something that wasn't even real. I told myself I'd been lonely, that I needed to feel seen, but those were just excuses to hide the truth. I was selfish and weak. One night, unable to take it anymore, I wrote him a letter. It took hours to finish. I poured every piece of guilt, every confession, every apology into those pages. I told him that I didn't expect forgiveness, that I didn't deserve it. I just wanted him to know I understood the pain I'd caused. When I was done, I sealed it in an envelope and left it on his doorstep the next morning. I don't know if he ever read it. He never replied. Time dragged on. Divorce papers came through quietly, without argument or drama. David didn't ask for much. He just wanted it over. When the final signatures were done, I sat in my lawyer's office staring at the pen in my hand, realizing that I'd just erased 6 years of my life with a few strokes of ink. I tried to start over, but nothing felt right anymore. Every morning felt heavier than the last. I went to work, came home, cooked dinner for one, and stared at the empty space on the couch where David used to sit. Sometimes I'd reach out unconsciously, expecting him to be there, and then remember he never would be again. Months passed before I decided to move out. The townhouse held too many memories. Every room reminded me of something I'd broken. The couch where we planned our future, the dining table where we talked about buying a bigger house, the bed where I used to curl up next to him without realizing how lucky I was. I found a small apartment across town. It wasn't much, but it was quiet. Maybe too quiet. One day, I heard from a mutual friend that David had bought a new house, a modest one, nothing fancy, but beautiful in its simplicity. He'd started seeing a therapist, joined a gym, was reconnecting with friends. He was healing. I was happy for him, but it broke me all over again. I realized he was finding peace, while I was still buried under the weight of my own choices. I wanted to reach out, to tell him how proud I was of him, but I knew it wasn't my place anymore. I was the reason he had to rebuild from nothing. My voice didn't deserve space in his life now. So instead, I focused on trying to become someone I could live with. I started therapy. I told the truth about what happened, no sugarcoating. My therapist told me something that stuck with me. Guilt is only useful if it changes you. That line echoed in my mind for weeks. I started small, rebuilding myself, piece by piece. I stopped checking Harry's social media, stopped rereading old texts, stopped torturing myself with what-ifs. I began journaling, running, volunteering on weekends, anything that reminded me that I could still do something good with the time I had left. Some nights, I still cried. The memories came back in waves. David's laugh, his hand reaching for mine while watching movies, the way he'd say my name softly when I was upset. Those moments haunted me, but I held on to them not as punishment, but as reminders of what love actually looks like. Real love isn't thrilling or dramatic. It's steady, quiet, reliable. I'd traded all of that for temporary excitement, and it cost me everything. Almost a year later, I saw him again by accident. It was at a cafe near downtown. He was sitting by the window, reading something, a cup of coffee in front of him. He looked calm, lighter somehow. I froze for a moment, debating whether to walk over. My hands were trembling. I finally gathered the courage and walked in. He looked up when he noticed me. There was a long pause. His expression didn't show anger, just a calm distance. "Julia," he said softly. "Hi," I whispered. "You look good." "Thanks," he said. "You too." We stood there in silence for a few seconds. I wanted to tell him everything, how sorry I still was, how I wished I could undo it all. But before I could, he smiled faintly and said, "I hope you're doing okay." I nodded, unable to speak. "I'm trying." He looked at me with the same warmth he always had, even after everything. "That's good," he said. Then he picked up his coffee and left. No drama, no harsh words, just quiet closure. When he walked away, I sat down at the same table and cried silently. Not because I wanted him back, but because I knew that was the last time I'd ever see him. It's been 2 years now. I still live in that small apartment. I still wear my wedding ring sometimes when I'm alone, not because I'm married, but because it reminds me of who I used to be and who I never want to be again. I learned that affairs don't just destroy marriages. They destroy parts of you too. The parts that believe you're a good person, that you're capable of love without hurting someone else. I'm still learning how to forgive myself, though I don't know if I ever fully will. David deserved better than what I gave him. He found peace, and I'm glad. I found consequences, and maybe that's what I needed. People say time heals everything, but I don't think that's true. Time doesn't erase guilt. It just teaches you how to live with it quietly. If I could go back, I'd tell that version of me who wanted excitement that nothing, no thrill, no attention, no spark, is worth breaking someone who truly loves you. And now, when I look out from my apartment window at night, I see other couples walking hand in hand and think about how easily I let mine slip away. That's my story. Not one of romance or redemption, but of regret. I lost the best man I ever had because I mistook comfort for boredom, love for routine, and temptation for happiness. And every day since, I've been living with the truth that some mistakes don't get second chances.